Arthur Conan Doyle, The Return of Sherlock Holmes.
The Adventure of the Norwood Builder. Part 1. From the point of view of a crime expert, said Mr. Sherlock Holmes, London has become a very boring city since the death of the late Professor Moriarty. I do not think many good citizens would agree with you, I answered. Well, well, I must not be selfish, said he with a smile, as he pushed his chair back from the breakfast table. The community is clearly better now, and no one has lost anything, except the poor specialist who now has no work. When that man was active, the morning paper had endless possibilities. Often it was only a very small sign, Watson, the faintest hint, and yet it was enough to tell me that the great evil mind was there. Like the small movements on a web show that the bad spider is in the center. Small thefts, sudden attacks, and strange acts with no reason. All could be connected by the man who had the clue. For a student of high-level crime, no city in Europe gave better chances than London at that time. But now, he moved his shoulders in a light, joking way about the situation which he himself had helped to create. At the time I am speaking about, Holmes had been back for some months, and I, at his request, had sold my practice and returned to live again in Baker Street. A young doctor named Werner had bought my small practice in Kensington, and he paid the highest price I asked with almost no complaint. Something I only understood years later, when I learned that Werner was a distant relative of Holmes, and that it was my friend who had really provided the money. Our months together had not been as quiet as he said, because when I look at my notes, I see that this time includes the case of the papers of ex-President Murillo, and also the terrible case of the Dutch steamship Friesland, which almost cost both of us our lives. However, his cold and proud nature did not like public praise, and he made me promise very strictly not to say anything more about him, his methods, or his success. A rule which, as I have explained, has only now been removed. Mr. Sherlock Holmes was leaning back in his chair after his strange protest, and he was opening his morning paper slowly, when our attention was caught by a very loud ring at the bell, followed at once by a hollow knocking sound, as if someone was hitting the outer door with his fist. When the door opened, there was a noisy rush into the hall. Fast steps ran up the stairs, and a moment later, a young man with wild eyes rushed into the room. He was pale, untidy, and shaking. He looked from one of us to the other, and under our questioning looks, he realized that he should say sorry for coming in so suddenly. "I'm sorry, Mr. Holmes," he cried. "You must not blame me. I am almost mad. Mr. Holmes, I am the unhappy John Hector McFarlane." He said this as if his name alone would explain both his visit and the way he came. But I could see from my companion's calm face that it meant no more to him than to me. "Have a cigarette, Mr. McFarlane," said he, pushing his case towards him. "I am sure that with your condition, my friend Dr. Watson would give you something to calm you. The weather has been very warm these last few days. Now, if you feel a little calmer, I would be glad if you would sit in that chair and tell us slowly and quietly who you are and what you want. You said your name as if I should know it, but I assure you that, except for the clear facts that you are a bachelor, a lawyer, a Freemason, and that you have asthma, I know nothing at all about you." I knew my friend's methods well, so it was easy for me to follow his ideas and to notice the untidy clothes, the bundle of legal papers, the watch charm, and the way he was breathing, which had led to them. Our visitor, however, looked at him in surprise. "Yes, I am all that, Mr. Holmes. And also I am the most unfortunate man in London at this moment. For heaven's sake, do not leave me, Mr. Holmes. If they come to arrest me before I finish my story, Make them give me time so that I can tell you the whole truth. I could go to prison happy if I knew that you were working for me outside." "Arrest you?" said Holmes. "This is really very interesting. What are they going to arrest you for?" "For the murder of Mr. Jonas Oldacre of Lower Norwood." My companion's face showed sympathy, but I am afraid it was not completely without a little satisfaction. "Dear me," said he. "Only this morning at breakfast I was telling my friend, Dr. Watson, that exciting cases had disappeared from our newspapers." Our visitor moved forward with a shaking hand and picked up the Daily Telegraph, which was still lying on Holmes's knee. "If you had looked at it, sir, you would have seen at once why I have come to you this morning. I feel as if my name and my trouble must be on everyone's lips." He turned the paper to show the middle page. "Here it is, and with your permission I will read it to you. Listen to this, Mr. Holmes. The headlines are, 'Mysterious Affair at Lower Norwood. Disappearance of a well-known builder. Suspicion of murder and fire. A clue to the criminal.' That is the clue they are already following, Mr. Holmes, and I know it leads directly to me. I have been followed from London Bridge Station, and I am sure they are only waiting for the order to arrest me. It will break my mother's heart. It will break her heart." He twisted his hands in fear and moved back and forward in his chair. I looked with interest at this man, who was accused of committing a violent crime. He had fair hair and was good-looking in a pale and weak way. He had frightened blue eyes and a clean-shaven face with a weak and sensitive mouth. He was about 27 years old. His clothes and manner showed that he was a gentleman. From the pocket of his light summer coat, a bundle of legal papers was visible, showing his profession. "We must use the time we have," said Holmes. "Watson, would you be so kind as to take the paper and read me the part about this case?" Below the strong headlines which our client had read, I saw the following interesting report. "Late last night, or early this morning, something happened at Lower Norwood, which may be a serious crime. Mr. Jonas Oldacre is a well-known man in that area, where he has worked as a builder for many years. Mr. Oldacre is not married, is 52 years old, and lives in Deep Dean House at the Sydenham end of the road with the same name. He is known as a man with strange habits, who is secretive and keeps to himself. For some years, he has almost stopped working, and it is said that he has made a lot of money. However, a small timber yard still stands behind the house, and last night, at about 12 o'clock, it was reported that one of the wood piles was on fire. Fire engines came quickly, but the dry wood burned very strongly, and it was not possible to stop the fire until the pile was completely destroyed. Until this point, it looked like a normal accident, but new facts suggest a serious crime. People were surprised that the owner was not at the fire, and when they looked for him, they found that he had disappeared from the house. When his room was checked, it was found that the bed had not been used, that a safe in the room was open, that many important papers were lying around, and finally, that there were signs of a violent struggle. Small traces of blood were found in the room, and also a wooden walking stick with blood on the handle. It is known that Mr. Jonas Oldacre had a visitor in his bedroom that night, and the stick has been identified as belonging to this person, who is a young London lawyer named John Hector McFarlane, junior partner of Graham and McFarlane, of 426 Gresham Buildings, E.C. The police believe they have evidence that shows a strong reason for the crime, and it seems certain that important new developments will follow. Later, it is reported, as we go to print, that Mr. John Hector McFarlane has been arrested for the murder of Mr. Jonas Oldacre. It is certain that a warrant has been issued. There have been more dark developments in the investigation at Norwood. Besides the signs of a struggle in the builder's room, It is now known that the French windows of his bedroom, which is on the ground floor, were open, that there were marks showing that a heavy object had been dragged to the woodpile, and finally, it is said that burned remains have been found among the ashes of the fire. The police believe that a very shocking crime has been committed, that the victim was beaten to death in his own bedroom, his papers were taken, and his dead body was dragged to the wood stack, which was then set on fire to hide all traces of the crime. The investigation has been given to Inspector Lestrade of Scotland Yard, who is following the clues with his usual energy and skill. Sherlock Holmes listened to this strange report with his eyes closed and his fingertips together. "The case has some interesting points," said he in his calm way. "May I ask first, Mr. McFarlane, why you are still free, since there seems to be enough evidence to arrest you?" "I live at Torrington Lodge, Blackheath, with my parents, Mr. Holmes. But last night, because I had to work late with Mr. Jonas Oldacre, I stayed at a hotel in Norwood and went to my office from there. I knew nothing about this matter until I was on the train, when I read what you have just heard. I immediately saw the terrible danger I was in, and I hurried to bring the case to you. I am sure I would have been arrested either at my office in the city or at my home. A man followed me from London Bridge Station, and I am sure— Great heaven, what is that?" It was the loud sound of the bell, followed at once by heavy steps on the stairs. A moment later, our old friend Lestrade appeared in the doorway. Over his shoulder, I saw one or two policemen in uniform outside. "Mr. John Hector McFarlane?" said Lestrade. Our unhappy client stood up with a pale face. "I arrest you for the deliberate murder of Mr. Jonas Oldacre of Lower Norwood." McFarlane turned to us with a gesture of despair and sank back into his chair like a man who was completely broken. "One moment, Lestrade," said Holmes. "Half an hour more or less will make no difference to you, and the gentleman was just about to give us an account of this very interesting case, which may help us to clear it up." "I do not think it will be difficult to clear it up," said Lestrade in a hard voice. "Even so, with your permission, I would be very interested to hear his story." "Well, Mr. Holmes, it is hard for me to refuse you anything, because you have helped the police once or twice before, and we owe you a favor at Scotland Yard," said Lestrade. "At the same time, I must stay with my prisoner, and I must warn him that anything he says can be used as evidence against him." "I want nothing else," said our client. "All I ask is that you listen and see that I am telling the complete truth." Lestrade looked at his watch. "I will give you half an hour," said he. "I must explain first," said McFarlane, "that I did not know Mr. Jonas Oldacre. I knew his name because many years ago my parents knew him, but later they lost contact. So I was very surprised when yesterday, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he came into my office in the city. But I was even more surprised when he told me why he had come. He had in his hand several pages from a notebook, covered with rough writing. Here they are, and he put them on my table. "Here is my will," said he. "I want you, Mr. McFarlane, to put it into proper legal form. I will sit here while you do it." I started to copy it, and you can imagine my surprise when I saw that, with some small exceptions, he had left all his property to me. He was a strange, small man, like a ferret, with white eyelashes, and when I looked at him, I saw his sharp, gray eyes watching me with a slight smile. I could hardly believe what I was reading in the will, but he explained that he was not married and had almost no living relatives, that he had known my parents when he was young, and that he had always heard that I was a very good young man, so he believed his money would be safe with me. Of course, I could only say thank you in a confused way. The will was finished, signed, and witnessed by my clerk. This is it on the blue paper, and these pages, as I said, are the rough draft. Mr. Jonas Oldacre then told me that there were many documents, building leases, title deeds, mortgages, shares, and so on, which I needed to see and understand. He said he would not feel calm until everything was settled, and he asked me to come to his house in Norwood that night, bring the will with me, and arrange everything. Remember, my boy, do not say one word to your parents about this until everything is finished. We will keep it as a small surprise for them. He was very serious about this and made me promise it. You can imagine, Mr. Holmes, that I was not in a mood to refuse him anything he asked. He was my benefactor, and I wanted to follow his wishes in every detail. So I sent a telegram home to say that I had important business, and that I could not say how late I would be. Mr. Oldacre told me that he wanted me to have supper with him at 9, because he might not be home before that time. I had some trouble finding his house, and it was almost 9:30 when I arrived. I found him. "One moment," said Holmes. "Who opened the door?" "A middle-aged woman, who I think was his housekeeper." "And she said your name, I suppose?" "Exactly," said McFarlane. "Please continue." McFarlane wiped his wet forehead and then continued his story. "I was taken by this woman into a sitting room where a simple supper was ready. After that, Mr. Jonas Oldacre took me into his bedroom, where there was a large safe. He opened it and took out many documents, which we looked at together. It was between 11 and 12 when we finished. He said that we must not wake the housekeeper. He showed me out through his own French window, which had been open all the time. "Was the blind down?" asked Holmes. "I am not completely sure, but I think it was only halfway down. Yes, I remember that he pulled it up to open the window. I could not find my stick, and he said, 'Never mind, my boy. I hope I will see you often now, and I will keep your stick until you come back for it.' I left him there, with the safe open and the papers in piles on the table. It was so late that I could not return to Blackheath, so I stayed the night at the Anerley Arms, and I knew nothing more until I read about this terrible event in the morning." "Is there anything more you want to ask, Mr. Holmes?" said Lestrade, whose eyebrows had risen once or twice during this unusual explanation. "Not until I have been to Blackheath." "You mean Norwood," said Lestrade. "Oh, yes, of course. That is what I meant," said Holmes, with his mysterious smile. Lestrade had learned from experience that Holmes's sharp mind could understand things that he could not. I saw him look at my friend with interest. "I think I would like to speak with you later, Mr. Sherlock Holmes," said he. "Now, Mr. McFarlane, 2 of my policemen are at the door, and there is a cab waiting." The unhappy young man stood up, and with a last hopeful look at us, he left the room. The officers took him to the cab, but Lestrade stayed behind.